Mon content boy. Mana boy nga nyimbata mbe taki tubabu du boy. Boy nga nakodo mbe doku boy. Nga kina nyinkendi moy boy. Pura e bungolo nyi. Boro na bungo hani lento amam futaji. Boy de jibe lu njumala ya funye koy babun lola. Ama me ila bungo jibe abadane.
Jara, foyte lafta fulanye man baluwo kalam.
Mun baluwo? Fo baluwo ko burlo ko fanan kele boy.
Nyim bungo jala be nyamende. Abe mu baluwo la do ko de.
Nyen kunne soniata ta www.baluwo.com. Anim baluwo isela bulloran jorangol be sang anila kudula asatare mambata. Jorangol membuko sementol, kenyo, babarol, nil, peruol, woninga nyon jamal. Ta baluwo.com. Yen jorangol be sang ila dinkira bado adungite batala je. Anim baluwo ifangole marate la kudula.
President Barrow appoints Bakari Baji as new Youth and Sports Minister. Gambia's Tourism Ministry to disburse $100 million to support businesses under its purview. Newly British High Commissioner hands over credentials to President Adama Barrow. These and more coming on your way on Gambia24. Stay tuned. Welcome back and thanks for joining us. You're watching Gambia24. I am your presenter, Mariama Cham. We now begin with our main stories. President Adama Barrow has appointed Bakari Baji as new Minister of Youth and Sports, replacing Mr. Hadraman M. Sidibe, who will be reassigned to the Foreign Services. Mr. Bakari Baji contested as an independent candidate during the 2017 mayoral election against Mayor Talib Ahmed Bensouda. Bakari was also a former nominated youth councillor of the KMC and human rights activist. He is widely known for his youth work and participation in local government administration across the country. Meanwhile, President Barrow, in exercise of the powers conferred on him under Section 71, subsection 4 of the 1997 Constitution, relieved Mr. Lyman Job, Minister of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment, of his cabinet appointment with effect from Wednesday, 30th September 2020, and reassigned him to the Foreign Services. Away from that, the Minister for Tourism and Culture, Ahmed Nkeba, said his ministry will disburse $100 million to support businesses and institutions within the tourism sector across the country. The move is promoted due to the high impact of the pandemic in the country's tourism industry. Khadija Tujao has more.
Speaking during the press conference on Wednesday, Mr. Barr told journalists that the coronavirus came unexpectedly and it has inflicted serious damages on the social and economic lives of people. Honorable Barr said people should learn to live with the virus because the borders will open soon for the 2020-2021 tourist season.
And I always believe that COVID is here to stay. COVID is here to stay as what cholera did. As I said, when cholera came to the Gambia, was it in 1869? When cholera came to the Gambia in 1869, the then colonial government took some measures to make sure that not the whole country was affected by this sickness and this disease. When we started working on COVID-19, we went back to the archives and we saw some of the measures that were then engaged or taken up by the then colonial government.
The African Development Bank, in its Regional Economic Outlook report, indicated that Gambia tourism sector will be the hardest hit, with arrivals set to decline by 28% from 2019, for a loss of $110 million in revenue and 20,000 jobs. Tourism Minister said As the most affected ministry from the pandemic, they were on standby to protect their people.
And of course, tourism went on zero ground. And indeed, the president made a declaration on a national disaster, of course, a pandemic, declared this country a pandemic, in a state of pandemic. And that, as a result, means that tourism was on ground zero and was dead. Now, we felt as a ministry, at the time, I think 2 days after the declaration, my ministry summons called on a meeting of all the stakeholders, including the Ministry of Finance, as to the way forward. Before anybody started taking any decision, 2 days after COVID was declared, we took measures to try to see what can we do to help mitigate some of the challenges that we may face in COVID and during COVID.
Honorable Ba said his ministry was almost bankrupt as a result. Ministry deemed it necessary to help the sector and its partners.
To the President of the Republic and the Vice President and the entire Cabinet for supporting this ministry in this quest. And again, I must stand here to thank rather, the Ministry of Finance, the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance stood up with all our requests, with all the efforts to support us in our quest to make sure we supported this industry. His permanent secretary and his staff were all with us. Again, I need to thank the National Assembly members, the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, the Minority Leader, the Majority Leader, and the entire leadership of the National Assembly, who stood up. We were there with them sometime until 1 a.m. to make sure that at least our ministry gets support that would help the industry to come back to normalcy.
The beneficiaries include Fajara Skills Development Center, National Center for Arts and Culture, tourist taxi drivers, hairdressers, Senegambia and Kotu market vendors, among others. iAfrica TV, Khadijatu Jao.
Due to the impact of the pandemic, $100 million is to be disbursed to the tourism sector. Now, the newly appointed British High Commissioner to the Gambia on Wednesday handed his diplomatic credentials to President Adama Barrow at the State House. Sona Tunkara tells us more.
Presenting his letters of credence to the President, the British representative to the Gambia, David Belgrove, said the two countries had long enjoyed friendship.
The Gambia and the UK have a long history and a long history of friendship, and that's something that I want to build upon. And it has been a privilege today to talk about our future relations with the Gambia.
Mr. Belgrove said they are looking forward to more collaboration between the two countries, especially in the area of security reform sector and economic recovery during post-COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, first of all, I congratulated the President on the democratic reforms that the Gambia has made to date and how we wish to work with the Gambia as friends to build on those reforms. In addition, we want to continue and build on the work that we do in a number of areas, including democracy, human rights, security sector reform, health, education, all of those things we want to continue to build on. But also, I said to the President, I want to help with the economic recovery, particularly after the COVID situation, and attract more investment from the UK into the Gambia.
Belgrove said the bilateral ties between the two countries will be strengthened in the area of defense by facilitating capacity building trainings for members of the Gambia Armed Forces. Appointed in August, Mr. Belgrove succeeded Ms. Sharon Waddell, who served as commissioner in the shores of the country for the past 3 years in office. For iAfrica TV, Sohna Tunkara.
The National Assembly member for Banjul North and chairperson of the National Assembly Select Committee on Health has called for more vigilance as the country witnessed a decline in the number of coronavirus cases compared to recent months. He was speaking during the Good Morning Africa program on iAfrica TV on Wednesday. More in this report. Usman Silla said there is a need to practice the WHO guidelines on the coronavirus preventive measures in order to avoid further spread of the virus in the country.
That we still need to continue our vigilance, and so that the face masks, the restrictions, the precautions that are being advised for people to pay heed to, adhere to, like face masks, physical distancing, and the like. I think it will help the country greatly for us to maintain these low levels, and then these non-deaths, because I think the deaths is an issue of concern.
Yeah, absolutely.
People dying from this, that's the real issue for concern.
Yeah, very well.
Of course, having people hospitalized also, because people who have been productive, who have been very useful in society, having them hospitalized is also an issue. But the issue of death is the major concern.
The level of compliance with wearing of face masks at public places significantly decreased in recent weeks, following the relaxation of the curfew and the easing of the regulations on markets and shopping centers. To this effect, the Office of the Inspector General of Police in a press release on Sunday warned that anyone found wanting will be prosecuted accordingly. Honorable Silla said people's behavior also have an impact on the increase in the number of cases in the country.
Well, it's quite obvious that the way people are behaving have really an impact on the cases to be registered. Of course, you can see a degree of complacency because for some people, the face mask is just something that they carry with them. Whenever they see a law enforcer, they put it on so as not to be in conflict with the law. And it's not meant for that. One has to be convinced that this is something that can protect me and can protect others. One has to have concern for others. You know, this is really testing on us as human beings, whether we really care for others. Those who do not observe this thing it's an indication that they do not care for others. I can just say that.
Most of the regulation violators argue that even the enforcers of these regulations are sometimes found wanting. But Honorable Silla is of the view that people should learn to protect themselves and others even if the enforcers are not adhering to the regulations.
I say, what I do, look at what I say. You know, that's not a good lesson.
Yeah,
but that's fine.
Yeah.
Even if they are violating it. For you also have a responsibility.
Okay.
You fail in your responsibility, but I ensure that I don't fail in my responsibility. So I think this is the type of responsibility I'm injecting people. I want people
whatever the case, you do right.
Imbue.
Whatever the case.
Whatever the case. And there are places when those that are violating, like those at the level of government, they can be taken to task. There's a place that one can do that. But for me, myself, I will not do anything that is inimical to my interest or to the interest of others. I will ensure that I observe the precautions. If those that are supposed to be doing it, taking the lead, are not doing it, that doesn't mean that also gives me the guarantee, the leeway, the opportunity, the guarantee, the license to follow suit, to do what they're doing.
The country currently has 3,579 cases of the virus, 112 died, and more than 2,000 recovered. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Mariam Cham. That story of Banjul South will take us to a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is GAMBIA24 and now to the rest of our stories. The APRC party held a press conference on Wednesday following the rejection of the draft bill 2020 by the National Assembly members. The party defends the reasons for the rejection of the draft constitution by the APRC parliamentarians. Nesise has more in these details.
The APRC party leader, Fabakary Tombong said many political leaders supported the draft bill because they hold the belief that the 1997 constitution is former President Jammeh's constitution.
And the greatest challenge we had, especially about the drafting of the 2020 constitution, is the fact that the UDP leader, and of course the GMC leaders, and some others, believe that the 1997 constitution is a Yahya Jammeh constitution, is owned by him, and therefore don't want to accept it. It should be clear that yes, the 1997 constitution could be called a legacy for President Jammeh, but it's a national document. It was drafted by Gambians, some of them included. It was presented to the electors in a referendum. It came to Parliament, and it was passed, and then it became the supreme law of the Gambia. How do you ascribe that to individuals?
The rejection of the draft constitution bill does not go down well with opposition political parties who have been breaking their silence on the matter. Honorable Jatta said leaders must accept the verdict of the people they represent. The opposition leader commented the members who voted against the draft promulgation bill 2020.
So it is important that we as leaders must honestly accept the verdict of the people if it is in compliance with our laws or the supreme law of the country. I want at this juncture to salute the heroic and gallant National Assembly members who voted down this draft 2020 constitution. You will be, I will assure you, you will be on the right side of history.
The bill failed to make it to the third reading stage of the Assembly after 31 members voted for the draft constitution, while 23 voted against it. The rejection of the draft constitution by the National Assembly has left a bad impression on the so-called New Gambia, where progressive laws were expected to lay the foundation of a truly democratic country after a 22-year dictatorship. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
Now, the top brass of the Gambia National Army on Wednesday decorated 22 junior officers to the ranks of captain and major. Speaking shortly after the decoration and swearing in of officers at the Joint Officers Mess in Kotu, the Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Yakuba A. Drame, commended GAF leaders for taking the initiative seriously.
As an officer, if you do not have an integrity as an officer, then your credibility is under question mark. Meaning you are not fit to serve as an officer. What is an integrity? Your moral conduct, honesty. Officers don't lie. You uphold the highest sense of humor and responsibility. And of course, you must be very caring. And you must treat those under you with utmost care and respect. As officers, we distinguish ourselves. And that is why we call ourselves officers.
The Army Chief advised promoted soldiers to be ethical and uphold professionalism in serving their country. The story of promoting soldiers to various ranks will take us to the end of today's Gambia24 news. Join us for more news on www.iafrica.tv. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye for now.
kaas pawa bi jeex na depuis démba xettali ma rek ni jaay nga jëndal ma kaas pawa balaa yére yi di wow dama passé
fii amoo fi benn xaalis laa amut waaw may ma tuuti waaw Mamadou waaw ma ne dimbale ñu rek nga yónnee ñu kaas pawa léegi suñ kaas pawa moo jeex depuis démb ok baax na
waaye yow ni jaay jaaxle naa de yow Mamadou naka lam ñoo jëndalee kaas pawa te fekk mu ngi bitim réew ni jaay
xanaa xamuloo ne ak balu waaye mën a nekk ci bitim réew mun naa yónnee njabootam kaas pawa ni ngay def yomb na da ngay log on to www.baluwo.com nga jëndee courant ci compagnie yi nga xam ne ñoo saytu wàllu courant ci dëkk yu mel ni Gambia Sénégal Mali Nigeria ak Sierra Leone.
lu bari wusi coronavirus lu law la jàngoro bi ak a dëgër boppa nga la jox ma sa noppa corona can be transferred to another if a person sneezes that doesn't mean the person has it ndeysaan.
Assalamualaikum. Waalaikumsalam. Nenda. Sen fan bi ñaata la? Abi. Comme yele la.
Sorry, soxna si balal ma.
Balal
ma. Check la bala ngay def.
Nga gele nañu xeex corona.
Lo gis?
Mu ngi
maa yow normal. Yow de yow yàlla rek la fay. Yow foo amee lii? Man dama am ay bérébu liggéeykaay yu bare. te dama bëgg a saytu suma liggéeykat bi seen wér gu yaram.
Dëgg la.
te lii dama ko war a am. ut naa ko fu nekk mënuma koo am.
Gis nga lii nag am ko yóbbu na de. mu ngi fi.
lii foo ko amee yow.
gis nga bu fekkee da nga koo soxla.
waaw.
dawal Kairaba Avenue. boo jógee Westfield mel ni kuy dem Kairaba bi.
waaw.
booy romb Alliance Franco rek.
waaw.
romb AIC.
waaw.
building bi ci topp.
waaw.
ñu koy wax smartphone house.
waaw.
boo fa duggee rek loo ci soxla ñu jaay la ko.
yow man foofu dinaa ci mën a am lu bari lu tolloog fukka.
loo ci soxla ñu jaay la ko te ni nga ko bëggee noonu lañ koy defee.
gis nga yow da nga muus gis nga lii waxuma la man rek waaye ku nekk daf ko war a ut.
maa la wax loolu.
lii jaaduwul rek ci place yi dafa jaadu ci kër yi jaadu ci béréb liggéeykaay compagnie yu mag yi.
te boo ko amee nag te set préjo sa xel dafay dal.
wax dëgg yàlla bari na ñuy dox foog ne ñu ngi feebar te ragal a dem lopitaan.
maa la wax lii de
jërëjëf yow dama la yàgg a bëgg waaye tey la rawati nag.
boo paree dem fa ñu jaay la ko boo àggee rek ñu dul la ko.